Hello everyone, how's it going? And welcome to the final patch notes for 3.4. We got 3.4c patch notes here. We are 2 weeks away from 3.5, so this is not going to be a crazy big patch at all. You can see a little glimpse of the buff champions and everything at the bottom. But as always, I'm going to go through all the changes, let you know my thoughts of what I think about all the changes, and then we'll kind of see how that works out. But yeah, as you can see, 3.5 is coming out on November 17th. I think one big thing is actually they funny enough put it in the patch notes section as well, the typing at the start. Big change is that Malphite is receiving a buff, and this is the first time Malphite has received any changes since alpha. So Malphite, I guess for most of the time, was a fairly balanced champion, but I guess not anymore. That's why they're buffing him ever so slightly. I think most of these buffs are not really that effective. They're not that, you know, game changing or anything like that. As I mentioned, this is the last cycle of 3.4c, which means that we'll just see how it works, you know, for when 3.5 comes out. Again, they're not going to do any big changes before the big one comes out. One champion though that is coming out is Warwick. Warwick is going to be released well 2 days from now when you'll see this video. November 4th at midnight. Warwick is a jungler. He's a very easy to play champion, very beginner friendly, a very fun champion to play at all as well. And I've been, you know, trying to figure out the builds and everything for him. I'm probably going to test a few builds as well when he comes out. Probably going to give him a try as well, and we'll see how things work with Warwick. But yeah, very, very cool champion, very beginner friendly, mainly gets played in the jungle. You can play him in the Baron lane as well. I'm definitely interested to see whether he will fit into any sorts of meta. Most of the time, Warwick doesn't really get played competitive because it's such an easy champion to work around. It's not really the most mechanical or crazy champion, but I think it's a cool champion for players that maybe don't understand jungle that much and they want to get into the jungle role. I think Warwick is, you know, fantastic for that. Just a very beginner friendly, very easy champion to play in a jungle. Right, on to champion changes. Akali is getting some minor changes. Base health regen is going up by 1, and health regeneration per level is also going up. So this is mainly for Akali when she's dashing in, doing a lot of damage. Her health regen is obviously her regen of health over time, which is normally when you get low on health, you then back off, and then you'll be able to heal up a little bit of health over time. Again, not major changes. Our favorite rogue assassin is in a tough spot. A lot of players enjoy picking her up, but she hasn't been able to pick up many wins across the board. Interesting, because I think Akali is actually very strong in competitive at the moment. So that's why she gets picked a lot in competitive. Maybe solo queue environment is a little bit different. That's why she's receiving some more buffs. But again, the buffs are not game changing. They're only like little tiny buffs to Akali, so it's not really going to change that much at all. Ekko, they're making some changes to him again. The first ability, the damage to monsters, is going down again. This got nerfed fairly recently and is being nerfed again. They're really trying to cut out Ekko in the jungle because I guess they just don't want Ekko jungle to be a thing. They want Ekko mid lane to be a thing. So they're completely nerfing Time Winder again to try and move Ekko away from the jungle and more towards the mid lane. But the problem is that Ekko is not really great as a mid laner because, you know, if you play against like other assassin matchups, most of the time he loses that. He kind of struggles against other control mages as well because you normally got that range versus melee matchup. It's kind of difficult to catch enemies off guard as well with your all-in combo because it's very easy to counter and to see. So yeah, that's why Ekko doesn't really get played in the mid lane too much, but they are buffing his base damage on Chrono Break, which is very, very scary because this ability already does a stupid amount of damage, like especially when you reach rank 3 of his ultimate. I've seen Ekko's one-shot the entire team. I've even done it myself as well on Ekko a few times. You know, you've probably seen a lot of Ekkos that they run away from you. You don't really see the shadow in time. He uses ultimate and boom, he just one-shots you out of nowhere. It's like, where the hell did that damage come from? That's all from his ultimate, which is actually getting buffed this patch. So very surprising that they're buffing his ultimate. Honestly, this will probably still make Ekko jungle completely fine, to be fair. But yeah, damage to monsters on the first ability going down by 20% is pretty big, which means his jungle clear is not going to be that great. But I still think it'll be fine. Ekko jungle is slightly better than mid lanes. We're making some other adjustments to damage he does to monsters. Yeah, so they're saying it themselves. You know, Ekko jungle is a lot more popular popular, sorry, than Ekko mid lane. So trying to move Ekko away from jungle and more towards the mid lane. Malphite, as I mentioned, is getting some buffs. If you saw my video earlier today as well, if you haven't, check it out. It's really, really good gameplay. Malphite has been my go-to Baron laner to play at the moment. He's a very, very fun champion. He's very easy to play as well at the same time. He's a very cool champion. So yeah, passive Granite Shield. The cooldown is going down. So at level 1 to 5, or level 1 to 4, it stays the same. So you still have the 8-second cooldown on your passive. But once you reach level 5, it goes down to 7 seconds. And once you reach level 11, it goes down to 6 seconds. So buffing more of his mid and late game with his passive shield, which is going to be quite nice. But they're reducing the maximum health percentage from 10% down to 9%. To be honest, 1% of the health won't really do too much. I do like that the cooldown has been lowered for later stages of the game, which means he can get his passive shield up more often, so he can look in and try and trade a little in the later game, a little bit in the later stages of the game. And then Seismic Shard, which is his first ability, projectile speed has also gone up by 2, so it's quite nice. So again, small buffs, but nothing really too crazy. It's just a very small patch, but some small buffs that will help Malphite quite a bit, especially the projectile speed on the first ability as well. Because it's projectile speed, it means he'll get his movement speed quicker. It means he'll slow quicker as well, so he can actually run onto enemy champions and kind of catch up sooner. Because at the moment with Seismic Shard, at times, like when you use your first ability, enemies can then flash away, and then your movement speed and slow doesn't really make a big difference. But maybe just make a difference now with the extra projectile speed that you have on the first ability. And then finally, we have Yuumi. Yep, Yumi's still underperforming because basically got rid of everything. I mean, Yumi as a champion just got completely gutted. Like, as soon as they reworked her completely, I think it was back in patch 3.4, they completely gutted her. I mean, she was definitely not as strong as before, because she has to focus a lot more on making sure she uses the heal at the right time now, because every single time you use your third ability, your zoomies, every single time an ally that you're sitting on auto attacks or use an ability, they heal more after that. So the initial heal, the first burst of heal, is not that much. So that's why she's not as good as before. But obviously, they did the buff to her in the previous patch, which now her passive shield is infinite, and now they're doing a little bit of buff to the shield, to the healing. But again, I don't think Yumi is still going to be in that good of a spot. I still think that she's going to be semi-okay. I don't think she's going to be like amazing or anything like that. And probably some of the biggest changes this patch are actually to do with the items. So Runaan's Hurricane is probably one of the weakest and probably one of the least used attack speed items in the game right now. It's been overrun by Static Shiv, by Rapid Fire Cannon, because of the passive that you get that stacks on top of each other. I've completely forgotten the name of the passive, but you know what I mean. The energized passive, that's the one, just came to my brain. Energized passive that stacks on top of each other. So like Storm Razor, Static Shiv, Rapid Fire Cannon. Most of the time with these Zil items, they're so much stronger because they give you just so much stats overall, and that's why Runaan's Hurricane is not really used too much. But they're doing a really nice buff to Runaan's Hurricane, so the bolts attack damage ratio is going up by 15%, which is quite a lot. So these are the extra bolts that you spread across enemy champions. So not the initial bolts, so not the auto attack on the champion that you're hitting, but the extra bolts that are spreading around enemy champions. That's basically what it is. So I think it's quite interesting to see that it is getting a bit of a buff. The only real champion that built this was Kai'Sa, but now Kai'Sa has gone more for like a hybrid build now. I might have to go back to the AD build with Runaan's Hurricane to see if if this buff is actually going to be worth it to maybe move back towards that AD carry build. Again, we'll have to see about that when the patch does release tomorrow. We'll have to test it out and see what we think about that one. So yeah, I mean, it says here, especially when up against a lot of melee opponents, like it's really, really good to go Runaan's Hurricane because you can spread a lot of damage. But as I mentioned, it's for thinking about it, it's only really Kai'Sa that builds Runaan's Hurricane. Everyone just goes like Storm Razor, IE, Static Shiv. Then you have to build an armor pen item. Then you normally go Bloodthirster, all these items like that. So all of these items are so much better than Runaan's Hurricane, which is why it's not really used too much. But yeah, anyway, so I mean, still really nice buffs. We'll have to see how that works out. Quicksilver Enchant is also getting a buff as well. They're buffing the crowd control immunity by 0.25 seconds. This is basically when you use the ability, when you use the ability before you get CC'd. So if you time it correctly, then you can use the Quicksilver enchant and then you won't get CC'd for 0.75 seconds. So if you time it correctly, then you'll be able to stop any incoming crowd control. So like Vi ulti, for example, if you use Quicksilver before, you won't get knocked up. Malphite ulti, you won't get knocked up. Nami wave, you won't get knocked up, etc, etc. You get what I mean. So it's basically the immunity that you have for the certain amount of time after you use Quicksilver. So it's really, really nice. I'm just interested in what I say. But the duration currently seems to be too short for most players to take advantage, so we're increasing the immunity window to meet our goals with rework Quicksilver. Yeah, I mean, I quite like Quicksilver. I like the remake that they did with Quicksilver anyway, because before it wasn't that great, but now it's actually quite nice. So yeah, really, really nice changes. And a pretty big system change as well. Really, really big system change actually is the what's the word called? Damage reduction. That's the one. So this, okay, so not a lot of people actually know this in the game. So when you take 2 turrets in the same lane in quick succession, then the next structure is going to gain damage reduction. Now, this damage reduction can be seen by the golden outline on the towers, and this also works on the nexus as well. And as I mentioned, not a lot of people actually know this. So say, for example, you was looking to try and finish the game. You already have the tier 1 tower in mid lane down. You take the tier 2 tower in mid lane, and just say you want a team fight in mid game. You took the tier 2 tower down. You took the inhibitor tower down, the tier 3 tower. Then the nexus is going to get this damage reduction. So it basically gains 30% damage reduction for 30 seconds. Now, as I mentioned, not a lot of people actually knew this. So I saw a lot of players go in and trying to end the game when it has that backdoor protection. And it's so difficult to try and take another tower when you have this huge, massive backdoor protection. So now they're changing it. So now they're doing it gains 15% damage reduction by 30 seconds. So they're actually making it easier now to take more towers after you take 2 in quick succession. So maybe trying to take advantage of maybe a big team fight win. You can try and finish the game. You can even try and take an inhibitor tower if you want to. This will probably accelerate games a lot more as well. But again, this is something that people did not know at all. I'm interested in what I say, actually. This is an invisible mechanic that has been in the game since launch. Yeah, again, invisible mechanic that not a lot of people knew about. Tend to prevent sudden game ends. We feel this is not to prolonging games while being difficult to play around due to its low profile. Rather than remove it in one go, we're reducing its power to better understand its impact on games. So yeah, they're just testing out at the moment. They're going to reduce it for now, see how it impacts games. But yeah, as I mentioned, this is a big thing that people did not know about. So it's good that they actually put it in the patch notes so I can kind of explain it to you. So as I mentioned, if you see that golden outer glow now, you know that tower or that nexus is going to have 15% damage reduction after this patch for the next 30 seconds. So it's going to be more difficult for you to take down. So you need to be careful when going for them towers or even the nexus when you have the golden outline there. So very, very important change. But again, they're nerfing it. So before it was kind of big, but now they're nerfing it. And then you got Old God Warwick, which is actually one of the coolest skins for Warwick as well. So I'm actually quite excited to see what it is. And then you have the free champion rotations. As I mentioned, not really the biggest patch, not the longest video, because patch 3.5 is coming out in 2 weeks' time. We also have the patch preview, which is coming out the same time as Warwick. It's crazy. So the patch preview is coming out 1 a.m. my time, and that's the same time that Warwick is coming out. So we're going to be crazy on content over the next few days. Got game changes this weekend to co-stream. Got all the new content with all the new skins as well. Legendary queue grinding at the same time. So there's a lot of content for Wild Rift, but this is why we love the game. You know, the content is what keeps us going. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Take care of yourselves. Have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you all in the next Wild Rift video. Peace.